Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the news today edition of 14th of July, wherein try and make all important news of the day in the most simplest format for you guys to understand. So let's look at the important news for the day. The main news comprises of recently our Honorable Vice President has raised concern about digital colonialism. The Standing Committee on National Board for Wildlife has sought the review of eco-sensitive zone guidelines. Mr. S. J. Shankar, our Honorable Foreign Minister, has visited Singapore, and the Singapore Foreign Minister has told India's growing influence in creating a multipolar world. The World Health Organization has appreciated India's efforts in integrating artificial intelligence with traditional medicines. And Environment Ministry has eased out the flue gas desulfurization systems norms. We are also going to see quick updates for the day, followed by place in news, which is Singapore. So let's look at the first news of the day. Our Honorable Vice President has recently raised concern regarding a topic what we call as digital colonialism. I am sure that all of you must have read the topic of colonialism in history, that how India was also a colonial country of a foreign rule. But now all of you must be using WhatsApps and many apps, right? So, but the problem with usage of this particular apps is all of these apps are controlled by foreign big companies. And that is where our Honorable Vice President has told that again, with this space of growing influence of what we call as a large number of people depending on all of these platforms which are owned by foreign companies, it is just other way of what we call as digital colonialism, where again, we are not going to be colonized by armies or states. We are going to be colonized with what we call as the foreign digital infrastructure. So let's look at what do we mean by loss of control, and one term is digital sovereignty. All of you must have heard the term sovereignty in the preamble of Indian Constitution, where again it is being told that India is a sovereign country, where again India is not going to be influenced by any foreign power, and India is going to take independent decisions. But when it comes to the idea of digital sovereignty, wherein what we have seen maybe across different years through examples that how maybe at different instances India is not completely what we call as digital sovereign country, wherein Indian government is putting up certain decisions which are not being followed by the big tech platforms of whatever apps what we are using in the digital space. One example is the example of WhatsApp versus India, which was there a case in the year 2024. In 2021, what we call as the IT rules, a new IT rules came. This IT rule talked about the idea of what we call as traceability of a message. You must have seen WhatsApp, one video which is circulating again, how WhatsApp is promoting the idea of digital privacy, wherein the messages are in encrypted form and the source could not be traced. And again, going by the idea of right to privacy. But many times what we have seen, how these messages sometimes are threat to national security, wherein the IT rules which was framed by government in 2021 asked for information, where again at certain circumstances, whenever government wanted to trace the origin of a particular message, only in instances of national security, WhatsApp would provide the data. But again, WhatsApp disagreed to that. It told ki no, again we are going by the idea of right to privacy and we are not going to share the source or the origin of that particular message. And again, it in fact threatened India that again, if India is not going to follow maybe the WhatsApp guidelines of privacy, it is going to leave India. That was the condition. And again, this is how you are going to see that how we are losing out on what we call as the idea of digital sovereignty. There's another example of Twitter, where again, all of you know farmers' protests happen. And in the farmers' protest instances, many times, Indian government requested Twitter as a platform to remove some of the post which was not required. But again, it was refused by Twitter. Again, loss of digital sovereignty. We talk about Google versus Paytm. All of you must, in the Android phone users, all of you must have used what we call as Google Pay as a platform, right? So again, many times in the app stores in Android ecosystem, Google has a dominance in terms of payment mechanism. right? Wherein maybe there was instances where again Paytm app was maybe was briefly was maybe criticized for a policy violation, and again Google is creating a dominance in what we call as the Android ecosystem. Then we talk about Apple App Store policies. Many time Indian developers develop certain kind of indigenous apps which are required in Indian context, but again as Apple again is maybe what we call as the developers face restrictions in terms of, because Apple control what apps Indian users can access. So these are the few instances where again it is reflecting on the idea of how it is very important at this point of time, which has been again discussed by our honorable vice president, that again India needs to think about what we call as having digital sovereignty into picture. Then there are other instances at how this digital colonialism is going to influence in terms of the cultural influence and what we call as cultural imperialism, where again there are few examples. Many times you have seen that again in Netflix. Let's say example, if you open up Netflix, the recommendations are broadly based on the Western content, Western movies, right? And there are less promotion or less recommendation when it comes to Indian movies or Indian content, Bollywood movies, Indian art. There is less content, and similar it goes to the YouTube platforms as well, right? And there are a few exceptions where again something which become very trendy, of course it is going to pop up in the notification, but generally it has been seen in these platforms where again the kind of content which is promoted is usually Western content. Then we talk about Instagram trends, because many times again in this whole idea of social media, we have seen that again how Instagram in many ways is promoting what we call as a Western lifestyle, and people are trying to mimic that as well. Again, an example of how we are losing out on our indigenous culture. Then we talk about the language wise. Many times we have seen on many platforms, Google, Facebook, and many other things, there is less influence of regional languages. Of course, Hindi is now somewhere promoted, but again, less number of Indian regional languages, which is not being used over there. Then again, TikTok, of course, it is banned in India. But again, before that as well, when TikTok was not banned, the kind of videos which were maybe produced or maybe made by content creators were largely influenced by the Western culture or the Western videos which are being made, right? So these are the few instances which are showing that how exactly we are going with this idea of digital colonialism to the idea of what we call as a cultural imperialism. Then we talk about a concept of privacy, because nowadays data is the new what we call as the new thing which is there, and again most valuable thing across the globe these days, because data can influence a lot of things. But what we have seen, are your data secure? Maybe you download an app, and the app is a free app, and you give certain kind of permissions to that. Again, you can access your contact, you can access your data, right? They can access it. Maybe many a times they ask for permissions, and you give permission because it's a free app. At that point of time, you are giving that right, that particular company to access your data. And in fact, many times, which all of you must have experienced in your life or maybe in the lifestyle, again, we talk about certain things. We plan a trip to, and we think of planning a trip to Goa. We discuss with the friends, and again, advertisement of Delhi Goa flight, or maybe any other flight comes or pops up into your whole different set of websites. Right? This is how data itself nowadays is not very secure, and there are a few examples which you can showcase that right. So again, there is no privacy, and there is what we call as surveillance capitalism. There are a few examples that again the Cambridge Analytica scandal. All of you know that how Facebook data was misused to influence elections, including of India, right? Then we talk about Google Maps and Gmail tracking. Many times, without our permissions, Google is tracking some of our activities through Google Maps as well as Gmail. Then we talk about targeted ads during election. Many times, again, ads are basically based on the kind of content which you are viewing in your phone, and that is how targeted ads are being made, and this was visible during the election process as well. Then we talk about free app trap. As I discussed, many times you download app, there's a free app, and again the app asks for certain kind of permission, you give the permission. That is where you are giving the concerned authority to maybe access all your data. So these are the few concerns which has been coming out once we talk about the the idea of digital colonialism, right? So where does India stand and how exactly what India is doing regarding this particular issue? Number one is we're trying to build our own platforms. We have seen platforms like Amazon, Flipkart, which are e-commerce websites. Okay, India has come up with a new concept, what we call as ONDC, that is Open E-commerce Platform, which is going to work just like Amazon and Flipkart. But again, what is the problem with Amazon and Flipkart? They are not the sellers who are going to list themselves. The criteria for listing of sellers is very difficult. The kirana stores, the local manufacturers find it very hard to list themselves or list their products in these platforms, which is again an idea which has been provoked or which has been discussed in this whole idea what we call as open e-commerce platforms, right? Then in terms of data protection laws, the recent DPDP Act talks about the idea of data privacy, that a person data is his or her private data, and that needs to be protected, which has been given through this legislation, what we call as DPDP Act of 2023, which says companies must protect your data and can't misuse it. Basically, it is a personal data protection law. Then we talk about Make in India initiative. Many times what we have seen that India is producing its own chips and defense tech, which is again reducing India's tech import and maybe influence or dependence on foreign countries on such technologies and products, right? And then recently in the G20 summit which happened in Japan, there was a motion which India refused to sign, that we call as refusal of Osaka Track, which asks that again that the data and global data needs to be shared, and again this is where India told that India data should be restricted to India only, and it refused to sign this particular what we call as Osaka Tract, which restricted unrestricted global data flow, right? And it is supporting the idea of data localization and the idea of what we call as digital sovereignty. So this is where, again, how India has been doing when it comes to the idea of digital colonialism. You can use this content maybe in the idea of governance or paper number 2, in the paper number 3, science and tech in Indian security as well as an examples, right? So this is where this topic lies into picture as far as importance in UPSC examination is concerned. Moving to next news of the day, there has been a standing committee of National Board of Wildlife which has sought to review the eco-sensitive zone guidelines. So briefly, firstly, all of you must have read in environment, what do we understand by eco-sensitive zones, right? Because environment is something which is taking a lot of center stage in global platforms as well, which needs to be protected. So there's an idea of protected areas. We need to protect our flora, fauna, right? So again, that is why we have created what we call as national parks, biosphere reserves, wildlife sanctuaries, a lot of things, right? So how exactly and where do eco-sensitive zones comes into the whole idea of protection of flora and fauna? Let's discuss. So basically, eco-sensitive zones are the zones which are around these national parks and wildlife sanctuaries that acts as a green buffer, right? To reduce human impact on the core protected zone of that protected area. What two purposes it is going to done? Number one is it acts as a shock absorber. I'll give you an example. I'll show you an image where again how exactly this transition zone is helping in terms of what we call as helping the shock of human settlement and influence in terms of environment. It is also a transition zone, which is area which is between what we call as a fully protected forest and human settlements, like basically a soft landing between the two basic ecosystems, right? So this is how exactly maybe if we consider this green area as a core zone of a protected area, right? So where again exactly no human activity is allowed. There is a buffer zone. If you see the greener part, where again it is showcasing that again it is permitted for tourism, for gazing of animals. Maybe you visit national parks, you visit wildlife sanctuaries, but again you are restricted to go in the core zone, right? Many times. Then we talk about the transition zone. If this area is being demarcated as an area of human settlement, so between this core zone to human settlement, this zone is basically called as the transition zone and the buffer zone, which basically is called as the eco-sensitive zones. Again, the Environment Ministry has, or the Standing Committee has recommended that again we need to ease basic guidelines regarding these eco-sensitive zones based on the need and the area which is getting protected. Next, what kind of activities are allowed in these eco-sensitive zones? That has been discussed, that has been given in the ESZ guidelines of 2011, right? Where again, what are the activities which are prohibited? For example, commercial mining, settling of sawmills, all of these, right? Things which are regulated but not exactly prohibited: felling of trees, drastic change of agricultural systems, establishment of hotels. So all of these are allowed but on a regulated basis, and which are permitted activities are ongoing agriculture and horticultural practices by local communities and what we call as rainwater harvesting. Very important for the prelims examination that again in eco-sensitive zones, which kind of activities are prohibited, which kind of activities are regulated, which kind of activities are permitted activities. They can give you any of these as 4 options and they can ask you, please classify and please tell us what exactly are the regulated activities or prohibited or the permitted activities. Very important for your prelims examination. Next, basically about eco-sensitive zones. They were introduced in the Wildlife Conservation Strategy of 2002. Again, very important fact for your prelims examination. They are backed by what we call as Environmental Protection Act. Sir, the eco-sensitive zones which I showed in the map, the rules says, that is the Environment Protection Act of 1986 tells that again, between core zone to the human settlement zone, the length of that eco-sensitive zones should be around 10 kilometers. That is the basic rule. Very important, right? So the rule says the ESZ, that is eco-sensitive zone, extends up to 10 kilometers from the protected area boundary. Very important fact for your prelims examination, right? Now, basic facts. Who notifies whether a zone is going to be eco-sensitive zone or not? Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, right? Based on which recommendations? Recommendations of the state government. Again, important fact for your prelims examination, right? What is the idea? State government usually proposes the area boundaries and prepares a master plan, right? So zonal master plans are getting created. That again, if I discussed, there are few activities which are regulated, which are permitted, which are not allowed, that again state governments are making plans to manage the entire eco-sensitive zones which are falling between the human settlement and the core protected areas, right? So in the formation of that, what we call as master plans, the states must include the tourism master plan as well, the heritage site listings as well, all of them in the master plan. Then again, it is also being discussed while framing these eco-sensitive zone guidelines, there has to be one key consideration which has to be done, that again there should be no inhabitation of human settlement which is there actually, right? That is where the people-centric approach has been followed in this, where again it ensures that the livelihoods and ecological goals both are protected and none of them is compromised for one another, right? Then what is the change? As I discussed, the committee has told there has to be a change. Sir, as I discussed, the distance or the length of that eco-sensitive zones is going to be 10 kilometers. Take for an example case of Himachal Pradesh. In this Himachal Pradesh, 65% of the area of the state is falling under the protected areas. After that, if you're again making 10 kilometer zone as eco-sensitive zones, sir, where do the state will develop in terms of infrastructure development? Right? And this is where you must have learned in environmental ethics that again development versus environment. So many times the standing committee has told that again a balance has to be maintained and a blanket or a one shoe size policy which is going to fit all of them is not working for this particular case. They're telling that there are some areas which are well protected and does not require a 10 kilometer stretch of eco-sensitive zones. So there has to be maybe a takeaway, or states has to be given some kind of an autonomy where again they are going to progress with an idea of development, with an idea of maybe protecting the environment as well. So यही बात हो रही है to revise that 10 kilometer वाला point ki based on the requirement that 10 kilometer stretch of length of eco-sensitive zone can be changed as per the requirement of that particular protected area. That has been the whole news altogether, right? So basically 65% of state is under the forest protected land in case of Himachal Pradesh, right? So again, enforcing a 10 kilometer ESZ may block essential development like roads and schools. So not all areas near wildlife parks have the same level of ecological what we call as this sensitivity. So local conditions must be considered and not for a uniform code which has to be done. So this is the broad idea which has been discussed by this committee. The next, our honorable foreign minister has visited Singapore, and Singapore's foreign minister has told and in fact appreciated India's influence in creating a multipolar world. Right, that is why this was in news. Right, so again, we need to understand firstly what exactly do we understand a multipolarity, bipolarity, unipolar. All of these terms you must have read in your history or world history part, right, or in the post-independence history. So basically, multipolar means not one, multiple countries. Again, that is how going to influence the global powers, right? Multiple global powers, not just one or two superpowers, because what we have seen during the Cold War era or before the Cold War, there was two superpowers. One was led by, there were two blocks, the USA and the USSR. But after that, the post-Cold War era, where again USSR disintegrated, we came with a concept of unipolar world, where again USA was the major country which dominated the entire global tech space, global space, right? And then there's a new concept which has been talked about. Again, it is not just only one power which is influencing the global order. There is multiple countries are creating a strong hold or strong global positions, and they are also in a race for what we call as an influence on the global powers. For example, there are several powerful nations. For example, if we talk about India, China, Russia, US, all of them are the ones who are influencing the today's global space. Then there has been a concept why the world is becoming multipolar. Sir, क्या हुआ ऐसा, right? Because post world Cold War, what we have seen, USA was the one, and majorly the world became a unipolar of unipolar nature, right? Then why we are coming with the concept of multipolarity? So again, there's one thing that again, US centric dominance is declining. Right, and there are many institutions which has been created like UN, IMF, and World Bank, which are also declining in their stature and mandate, because these institutions, as we've discussed in the previous discussions as well, that how they are getting influenced and they are losing out on their decisions and powers because they are largely dependent on these global Western influential big countries, right? So again, that is where this has been discussed. Then we talk about there are new institutions which are coming into the picture. For example, we talk about BRICS, or the new developmental bank which has been created by the BRICS as an organization, which is again promoting an idea of developing nations, right? Again, it is just like similar to providing loans to just like World Bank. We talk about IMF versus what we call as the Asian Infrastructure Bank, which has been created. So all of these are maybe somewhat a new stature of these whole global institutions which was already created. Then we talk about rise of plurilateralism. It is not just going to be multipolarities, plurilateralism. So what exactly do we understand by plurilateralism? So number one, because many times if you talk about NATO, which was an alliance, right? But again, nowadays, the organizations or institutions which are getting created, they are more about need-based organization. We talk about BRICS, we talk about Quad, we talk about SCO. All of these are specific need-based organizations, right? Again, they are flexible in their nature, they are flexible in their mandate, they are issue-based, they are working on issue-based cooperation. So that is how what we have seen, that again, how the global stature is getting more influence towards what we call as multipolarity. Then we talk about India's strategic responses from non-alignment to multi-alignment, because we have seen that India was a strong supporter and a strong believer of non-aligned. But again, we did not align to any of the power blocks, neither the USA nor the USSR. That was India's stance during the era, right? So again, but now what India is doing, the stance has changed in the 21st century, where again we are not just non-aligned, we are multi-aligned. What do you understand multi? I'll explain you, right? So we are engaging with all powers to protect our interest. I'll take an example. India has joined Quad, which is a collaboration between the US allies, that is the USA, Australia, Japan, and India, right? We are also working with SCO and BRICS, which has between the countries like Russia and China. So again, we are not maybe aligning towards any of the power blocks. We are need-based. India is basically need-based alignment has been done. That is going by the idea of what we call as plurilateralism. Then in terms of India's growing role in minilateral and plurilateral groupings, there are many groupings which I'll tell you that again how Quad. Quad is basically Indo-Pacific security between US, Japan, and Australia. At the very same, I2U2, which is economic partnership between India, Israel, US, UAE, and USA. We talk about IPEF, that is Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. We have joined BRICS plus SCO, which is Voice for Global South. So India is now everywhere, but on its own term. Right? And that is where this whole idea of minilateral or plurilateral groupings are coming into picture. Then we talk about what is the vision of India when we talk about this multipolar Asia, because it is telling that again, we are not just talking about going to be a multipolar world. We are also talking about a multipolar Asia, because in Asia, what we have seen, there has been a growing Chinese influence. And this is where India has been advocating for creating a multipolar Asia through supporting a balanced Asia, not a China-centric one. We are talking about deepening the ties with ASEAN, Japan, and Australia through what we discuss as Quad. India believes in principle of strategic autonomy based on the need. This is where India is talking about creation of multipolar Asia. Then we talk about what are the challenges in terms of creating this multipolar world. Number one, there has been a return of Cold War politics, because with the growing Russia-Ukraine war, there has been a revival of what we call as a bloc mentality, because there's a Western countries which are not supporting this, but there is a Russia-China tie which has come up into picture. So again, we are moving back towards a bipolar world, where again the Western countries are not supporting this, but again Russia, China as a country are having a different view on this particular aspect, right? So again, the US-led West versus China-Russia alliance, which is again creating an idea of what we call as a bloc mentality. Then we talk about pressure. India is again getting pressure to take sides, because we are member of Quad, and again in this there's US. Then we have SU and BRICS, where again we have Russia and China, right? So this is where now, as I discussed with this scenario, again bloc mentality is coming, and again India has partnered in different institutions, Quad with US, SCO and BRICS with Russia and China. So again, it is getting pressurized to take what we call as a side. That again, which side actually you are as a country. Then there is a weakening of Russia, where again, because as sanctions has been put up by the Western countries on Russia, so Russia is depending majorly on China on major of the products, right? So again, Russia is dependent more on China, and again, which is reducing India's influence in the whole Eurasia region. So these are the few challenges once we talk about India's role in creating a multipolar world that has been discussed. This was a major crux of the news. The next news for the day, the World Health Organization has told that India, and in fact maybe appreciated India's efforts in integration of artificial intelligence with what we call as traditional medicines. This has been the report. So we need to understand what exactly do we understand by traditional medicine. So World Health Organization has recognized India's leadership in artificial intelligence plus traditional medicines. Traditional medicines basically means Ayush, Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, Sovarikpa, and homeopathy, right? So again, it is basically Ayush is a historical traditional way of medicine. which is getting integrated with a modern technology of artificial intelligence. So this is why this effort of India in integration of tech versus historical medicine is appreciated by World Health Organization, right? So what exactly is the news? Because World Health Organization has recently released a technical brief. The title was Mapping the Application of Artificial Intelligence in the Traditional Medicine. India's leadership was in fact very much acknowledged in terms of creating a global initiative on artificial intelligence for the what we call as GIA for artificial intelligence for health, which is led by WHO, ITU, and WIPO, right? And in fact, India was the one who gave the idea of what we call as in terms of explicitly acknowledging the idea of how integration of traditional medicine is being done with what we call as artificial intelligence. The next thing is, what exactly is this global initiative on AI for health? Very important fact for your prelims examination. That again, this initiative for integration of AI in health is a broad topic, and there's a subtopic of how AI is getting integrated in what we call as traditional medicine, right? So this GI global initiative for AI for health has been launched by these three bodies. That is World Health Organization, which is a global health body. Then second is International Telecommunication Union, ITU, which is a UN telecom and tech standard body. Then third is World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, which is overseeing the patents and IP at a global level, right? The aim of this whole global initiative for AI for health is to guide ethical and effective use of AI in healthcare across the world, because we have seen it how it is very important to regulate this new technology of artificial intelligence. And on health sector, this initiative has been provoked, or it has been done for what we call as initiative for artificial intelligence for health, or maybe ethical use of it. Then how does India uses artificial intelligence in traditional medicine? Briefly, you should know this. Why exactly India got appreciation from World Health Organization. Let's see how India is performing in integration of artificial intelligence in traditional medicines. Number one, smarter diagnosis, because we have seen the traditional medicine of Ayush is using a combination of pulse reading, tongue analysis, prakriti as in the environment of your body analysis. Based on that, maybe something is being suggested to you. So how exactly AI using? So AI or machine learning is giving a quicker and more precise diagnosis based on these parameters, which is being used by the traditional medicine. Then we talk about Ayur genomics, that is mixing of Ayurveda with the genomics. That is, it is helping, either AI is helping to identify diseases, risks based on the body type and genes, right? It offers personalized preventive care. Then we talk about understanding the health herb effects, because many times the Ayush or the traditional medicines are using herbs as a medicine. So how exactly which herb has which kind of properties, and it is going to be used for which kind of a disease, that is making simple by integration of AI in this particular aspect, right? So again, all of these are the examples that how exactly India is using artificial intelligence in the traditional medicine. Sir, what are the challenges which comes into picture when we talk about this integration, right? The first challenge is number one, biopiracy, because we have seen that how things are getting pirated, and again they are not in a secure position, where again that is one challenge which is coming into picture, is risk of foreign misuse of indigenous knowledge, right? Where again local communities may not get credit or benefit of something which they have as an indigenous way of doing that particular thing. Then there's a lack of quality of data. If we are going to integrate AI in something, we need to have a good data, because AI actually works on data. Uska input data hi hai, right? So in India, because the traditional things are basically handwritten or in a fragmented manner. So again, there's AI leads large and clean data sets. So this is one challenge which is coming into picture when we talk about integration of AI in the traditional medicine. Then localization versus standardization, because AI needs standard formats, right? But the traditional practices which are basically have a high influence of local and a diverse set of things. There is no standardized things. maybe a practitioner of Ayush in some state would differ in some kind of his usage of things as compared to a different state. So there is no standardization. Then we talk about digital divide. Many of these traditional medicine practitioners are not digitally literate. So if they are not digitally literate, how they can integrate this new AI in the traditional medicine? So these are the few challenges which has been put forward when we talk about use of AI in traditional medicine. Sir, what exactly World Health Organization has suggested to tackle these challenges? क्या कर सकते हैं? Number one, we need to adopt the WHO's tech guidelines, ethical AI deployment, transparency, privacy, and consent. All of these to talk about the idea of biopiracy. Then, in terms of strong data protection, as I discussed, AI works on data, but again, there is a data leak issue as well that we need to ensure that ownership of local knowledge is there. We need to discuss the prevent and misuse or exploitation of this whole idea. Then we talk about global collaboration should be done in terms of co-developing of AI tools at a global level. Best practices across the globe need to be shared, and we need to promote what an idea of what we call as an open innovation. So all of these things are the suggestions which has been put forward by AI broadly in terms of use or integration of artificial intelligence in the health sector. Very important topic for your GS paper number 3. The next topic for the day, recently Environment Ministry has eased flue gas desulfurization system norms for thermal power plants. All of you thermal power plants, right? So for electricity generation. So what exactly was the need? Where again, something which is very important for environment, but again, the norms has been relaxed for thermal power plants, which are the prime source of greenhouse gas emissions. So again, let's see what are the reasons and why, in fact, Environment Ministry has told that there has to be some kind of leeway which has to be given to these thermal power plants, right? Very important concept in terms of your environment, both for prelims and mains examination. So what is the news? The recent notification has told that Environment Ministry has exempted 78% of coal-based power units from installing flue gas desulfurization system. All of these plants, 78% of total number of coal-based plants in India are told that they need not to use what we call as flue gas desulfurization, which is controlling a harmful emission of sulfur dioxide, which is being released from these coal-based power plants. Sir, what exactly is the reason? What was the need? So again, it was mandated in 2017, basic fact for prelims examination. Now only 11% must comply by 2027, right? And decisions are based on an expert committee recommendations. What exactly is sulfur dioxide and why it is bad for health as well as for environment? Sulfur dioxide is a pollutant which is majorly released from coal-based power plants, which is when power plants burn coal, they release SO2 in air. So when SO2, which is released from this power plant, mixes with air, they form tiny toxic particles, which is PM 2.5, which can go into our lungs and again create respiratory problems for us. It leads to asthma, lung infections, and even heart diseases. It is also being told that again how SO2, you must have read the idea of concept of acid rain, right? So as SO2 can also acidify the rain. It, of course, with this acid rain, it is going to harm the soil, crops, and water bodies. So these are the harmful effects of SO2. Very important, all important pollutants or air pollutants which is coming into picture. Read that because in environment, these kind of questions are asked in examination. I also just please read the basic chemical properties of this sulfur dioxide. Then what exactly is flue gas desulfurization? Basically, whenever gases are emitted from here, so they are telling please flue gas desulfurization is just like a filter which is installed at the outlets of these harmful gas chambers, where again it can absorb what we call as sulfur dioxide, and it would lead to less emission of the sulfur dioxide from these coal-based power plants. So basically a pollution control technology that used in thermal power plants removes SO2 from flue gases before they enter into atmosphere, and it helps prevent formation of PM 2.5 and acid rain, which we have discussed already. Then what is the new category? इन्होंने बोला है all the coal based plants in India are divided into 3 categories now. Category A, within 10 kilometer of NCR or cities, because we have seen that Delhi is an area which is having a severe air pollution issue around the year, right? So on areas which have less air quality or a bad air quality, it has been made mandatory that all of the coal-based power plants are mandated to install these flue gas desulfurization filters and the deadline has been given of December 2027. The category B, near critical polluted areas and non-attainment cities, जहाँ pollution थोड़ी सी कम है, less as compared to the ones, it is told that you need to, it is not mandatory, it is a maybe, where again an expert committee will decide case by case whether it is mandatory to install this flue gas desulfurization filter in that particular area or not, and the deadline for this is also December 2028. For rest all of the things, all other categories that is put under category number C, all other plants are exempted from installing these flue gas desulfurization filter. What exactly has made the environment minister or the environment ministry to think that again such thing is in fact required, where again we talk about the harmful impact of greenhouse gases and the climate change happening? What has been the reasoning given by this particular committee? They have told that SO2 levels in most Indian cities are already at below limit, right? Then they're telling that Indian coal, in coal-based power plants, the raw material is coal. So Indian coal has less sulfur content. So of course, less sulfur is going to be produced as a byproduct. So that is one reason they have given. They have also told that installation is automatically going to increase your electricity cost and of course going to take away the cost of project to a higher level. So that they have told it has to be normalized. Only 8% of plants, because as I discussed, this whole flue gas desulfurization filter was mandated and it was launched by government to be done by 2017. We are in 2025, but still only 8% of plants have managed to install this particular device. Why? Because of higher cost, not enough vendors of this particular thing, and the COVID-19 disruptions which all together has happened. So that is why government has been relaxing the whole idea of usage of these flue gas desulfurization filters in the coal-based power plants. The next news for the day, we are going to discuss the place in news, that is Singapore. As I discussed in the first news as well, that second news in fact, how our honorable foreign minister has visited Singapore, and again there has been dialogue going on between the two countries' foreign ministers. So that is why this place is in news, very important. Singapore, locate it on the map, the neighboring countries, right? So the capital of Singapore, it is basically a country as well as a city, right? It has approximately 60 islets, small islands before that, and again it is located in the southern tip of Malay Peninsula, very important geographical location, right? In terms of its maritime boundaries, northern side, it is being bounded by what we call as Johor Strait, right? And in the southern side, it has been bordered by what we call Singapore Strait in the Indonesia area, right? So two important maritime boundaries, that is water boundaries. Then in terms of geography and climate, basically it is 137 kilometers north of equator. It has a climate of equatorial monsoon climate, where again equatorial monsoon climate type, what is very important, what kind of flora and fauna species being found, you need to look at those areas as well. It is home to Southeast Asia's largest ports, right? And it is a key point of Strait of Malacca in Indian Oceans and South China Sea Link. Again, very important. Read all of the important things below that, all the harbors, all neighboring countries with respect to Singapore, which was a place in news. Now we are going to quickly cover the quick updates for the day. So our honorable president has nominated 4 new members to Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha, again, the upper house the House of Elders. It has a mandate of 250. Out of those, 238 are indirectly elected, and 12 persons are nominated by the President of India. So the President of India gets recommendations from the government. In this case, the Ministry of Home Affairs is giving recommendations to the Honorable Prime Minister, and then again she is nominating members to the Rajya Sabha. And again, why important? Because the members are nominated on 4 grounds. That is, they have to be an expert with special knowledge in literature, science, art, and social service. Right. One important fact I will tell you: what is the need for this? Because basically, Rajya Sabha is again a legislative organ of the government, right? So sometimes there are some legislations which requires an expert viewpoint as well. For example, if you're going to make a sport law, so there is if a sport person is there in the parliament, right? He or she will give some kind of a sport advice, right, or a viewpoint which is going to help better frame that legislation. And that equally goes for all of these sectors. And that is why the idea of nominated members in case of Rajya Sabha, read important articles, Article 80, which subclause talks about DOT. So all of those are important. Read the names of 4 new personalities who have got nominated recently, right? The next news, what are weather derivatives? I'll ask you one question. Let's say you are a mango farmer. You are also knowing a fact that if it is not going to rain as much as it is required in the month of June, your crop of mango is going to fail, right? And what if I tell you that there is a mechanism that if you buy a weather derivative, and if, let's say, in the month of June, the expected rainfall is, let's say, 50 mm. If it is less than 50 mm, and if you have bought this weather derivatives, right, so which says that again you are going to get compensated in case in a particular month the amount of rainfall is going to be less than what has been predicted, you are going to get some kind of compensation. That is what the weather derivative is being discussed. So it is very, very important and very needed thing across the agricultural sector, because we have seen that how agriculture has succumbed many times to the changing nature of climate happening and climate change catastrophic happening in the agricultural sector. That is the whole idea of what we call as this weather derivative. So that it has been developed by NCDEX, and again important fact for your prelims examination, that is National Commodity Exchange, which is working with Indian Meteorological Department to create these weather-based financial tools, right? So they are what kind of data they are using? They are going to use the past as well as real-time weather data to create contracts that farmer can buy to protect themselves. What is the contract? Sir, I am feeling in the month of June, if the rainfall is going to happen less, I will get this amount of compensation, which will be the contract if which is going to be given to farmer if he buy this weather derivative. Basic facts, underlying asset, because आपने पढ़ा economics में derivatives, there is some underlying asset. Again, here there is no underlying asset, no money, no shares, but just the weather data of past and present. Purpose: to reduce the financial risk from unpredictable weather which has been happening in the country. It is used where? It is already using at a global level since 1990. India is now started to use this particular phenomena. It has no market value because unlike stocks, weather itself can be traded. So these belongs to what's called as incomplete market, where again it is just a thing which would happen and then this contract which is coming into picture. And it is of course going to be location specific, where again how exactly and where this whole weather derivative is going to be on a location based, because it is going to be tailor made based on the location of that particular area. Very important. You can use it as an example in conclusions of your answer, where again how we are discussing the impact of climate change on agriculture happening nowadays. The next news for the day: what are arboviral diseases? Again, very important, because many times we have seen UPSC ask questions like this. Arboviral disease was in news. Which thing it is related to? Again, so very important. Arbovirus is basically a short form of arthropod-borne viruses, important fact for your prelims examination, which is spreaded by insects like mosquitoes. Usually mosquitoes से ही होता है. It is also called as arthropod-borne virus, which is the full form of arbovirus, and they are mostly spread by the Aedes mosquito, right? And how exactly they are common? In example, so again, the common arboviral diseases include dengue, chikungunya, Zika, yellow fever, right? And why it is rising on the list? Because we have seen climate change is impacting across all domains. What do you think of? Starting from health, agriculture, anything you can think in terms of finance, economic, politics. In terms of health, this is an example again with the rising nature of climate change happening, right? With urbanization happening, with global travel, people are traveling at global level. So again, approximately 5.6 plus billion people are, again, we have seen an example of how a virus led to a pandemic across the globe, right? That is why it is very important. Challenges in terms of addressing this arboviral disease, because the symptoms sometimes look very similar, just like similar symptoms like fever, rash, and headache. There is simultaneous outbreaks at many places, right? Difficult to diagnose very at an early stage, right? And in terms of the World Health Organization response to this arboviral disease, which was on an increasing side, they have told that we need to have integrated guidelines for all arboviral diseases, and we need to promote a uniform clinical approach to diagnose and to treat this arboviral diseases, which is there, or which is taking a global health attention across the globe. The next news for the day: Super Earth TOI 1846 discovered. So recently, NASA's TESS telescope has discovered twice the size of Earth, an exoplanet. That is why it was in news. Very important. It is twice the size of an Earth, and it is orbiting a red dwarf star. It is located 154 light years away. We calculate distance in space to light years, and again, it is discovered. It is being thought that again it is going to be rich in water as a resource, right? What exactly is Super Earth? क्यों बोला गया इसको Super Earth? Because some familiarity in terms of the planet of Earth. So exoplanet है, which is larger than Earth and smaller than Neptune. It has mass up to 10x of Earth, 10 times that of Earth, and we don't know whether it is rocky, watery, or gas filled. It is not necessarily, as of now, maybe discovery has not been done that again it is just Earth-like planet or not. So that is still we are not sure about it. And again, larger ones, because there are a lot of things. The larger ones are called as sub-Neptunes or mini-Neptunes. Why it matters as discovery? Because it aids search for habitable worlds apart from Mother Earth, right? And it expands understanding of planetary systems at a spatial level. The next news for the day: the diammonium phosphate. It was in news because recently India has signed an agreement with Saudi Arabia in terms of importing of 3.5 million tons of diammonium phosphate supply for the next 5 years. Why it is important? Because it is, again, basic facts, very important for your prelims examination and in the agricultural topic as well. And again, it is made for phosphorus and nitrogen, and it promotes plant growth and protein synthesis because it is being used as a fertilizer. It is highly soluble and in the soil, right? And it is most widely used phosphorus fertilizer at a global level as well. India is the largest consumer of diammonium phosphate. Again, very important fact for the prelims examination. It is covered under the nutrient-based subsidy scheme of the government. And lastly, it is used, this product is also used as a fire retardant and in what we call as metal finishing. So again, very important uses of this product. And again, that is why an agreement was signed with Saudi Arabia in terms of getting continuous supply for the next 5 years of 3.1 million ton. The next news for the day: nano fertilizers and biostimulants. Again, very important facts for your prelims examination. Why I'm telling? Because these are how UPSC asks question. Right? For example, recently government has asked all the state governments to stop forced sale of nano fertilizers and biostimulants to farmers. Government ने बोला कि you cannot force farmers and forced selling should not be done. Why something which is good for environment, and why government is telling that you cannot force farmers to buy such things? Firstly, we need to understand what do you understand by nano fertilizer. So basically, nano means small. So nutrient packed tiny particles, which is less than 100 nanometers. Again, very small nutrients when released small area, but large impact in terms of they release nutrients slowly and effectively, which leads to less wastage of the fertilizers. What are biostimulants? So the term here is bio, right? So they are natural. They are found naturally in the environment. Stimulants, they stimulate the growth of plants, right? So these are natural substances or microbes that boost the plant growth. They are not fertilizers, they are not chemicals, they are not pesticides, they are just natural products, right? They work by stimulating plant process, not by adding any nutrients. They stimulate anything. Example includes humic acids, seaweed extracts, liquid compost, and beneficial fungi and bacteria. So all of these are examples of biostimulants. Very important fact for your prelims examination. Why it matters? Because as all of these two, nano fertilizers and biostimulants, are going to improve the crop quality and soil health. But again, it is being told that again the government is telling, please make the farmers first aware about the benefits and don't force sell all of these. Forced selling should not be done. That has been the broad idea and logical idea which the government has produced. The next news for the day. Recently, Indian Council of Medical Research has talked about silent salt consumption epidemic. The difference between epidemic and pandemic, please tell in my comments. Right. So in terms of the salt intake, namak jo hum khate hain, the salt intake, the urban intake is 9.2 grams per day. Rural is 5.6. The World Health Organization limit is of less than 5 grams per day. So they are telling salt is going to be a silent or a small thing which is going to be a silent disease coming in the future, right? Because with excess salt consumption, there are few underlying health risks involved: hypertension, BP, stroke leading to that, and again heart and kidney diseases, right? What is the solution for this, sir? Use low sodium salt substitutes. ICMR has launched campaigns to make people aware about this whole silent salt consumption epidemic by hashtag pinch for a change, less salt to be used in the cooking food, right? And community-led salt reduction programs or mechanisms. That is how, please use less salt in your food, because it is going to be a slow thing which is going to take a toll on your health at a longer run. The next news for the day: New Caledonia, which is a French colony which was there, it has been given more autonomy but not independence, which it has been asking from the country of France. So if you locate it on map, if this is Australia, this is New Caledonia, which is again a French colony, right? So they have been asking independent status from France, but again France has told, we're not going to give you an independent status, but now we are going to give you more autonomy. That is why it was in news. So it will become state of New Caledonia within France itself, right? And it is not going to be getting a full independent and but again more local control on certain subjects of administration has been given to them. Basic things: it is a French territory in the Pacific Ocean, located in the map, very important. It was annexed by France in 1853. Again, important fact for prelims examination. And it has a history of forced labor and colonial exploitation. All the regions over there had a similar kind of historical story, right? What exactly is the issue? Because there are indigenous Kanak people. Very important fact for prelims examination. The Kanak people which are found over there, they're asking for autonomy. But again, the European people who are settled in this particular territory, they are telling that we are preferring to remain with France itself. That is why this was in news. So that's all together for the entire topics what we have discussed. Now you must be seeing some questions which should be coming up in your screen. Try and attempt all these questions. It is very important that once we have read anything, we need to solve questions, because in the examination, it is all about solving questions from the topics what we have learned. So again, this platform is going to give you a beautiful approach to, once you read the document, once you see the video, once you get to know things, you try and solve your knowledge through solving such questions which is popping up in your screen. Lastly, Visualize has come up with a digital current affairs platform, which is a one-stop solution for entire current affairs issue which you face during your UPSC examination preparation, which is a one-stop solution for entire current affairs at this website. So please go and explore this particular platform of Visualize. Till the time, thank you so much and have a good night.